Hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn, and this is a flip of the Spellbinders November 2024 club kits. I'll be making 4 cards today, and as per usual, one will be a flat card, a layered card, an interactive, and a pop-up card. I am going to feature the Better Press Club, the Stencil of the Month, the Wax Seal Club, the Small Die of the Month, and the Large Die of the Month. Because this is a long video, I am going to timestamp this video, so if there's one card in particular that you want to see me make, you can skip straight ahead to just that card. And without further ado, let's go ahead and make these. Okay, so let's start with the flat card. And I feel like I'm cheating when I do this, but the Better Press Club has become my go-to for my flat card. It's such an easy way to create easy mailers, which is kind of the whole reason that I include flat cards as part of my flip, because I feel like a lot of times my instinct is to add more, to use a lot of foam, to use a lot of dimension, and I really sometimes just appreciate not having to worry about whether something is going to cost extra postage. So the idea behind a flat card is that I have easy mailers on hand all the time. And the my definition of a flat card isn't strictly just your card base alone, but rather at most one additional layer and flat embellishments, if any at all. And that's why the Better Press Club is always so nice as a go-to, because often it's a really large design and it's so perfect to use just by itself, especially with that lovely 100% cotton paper. Really elevates the card. But today, this month's club is kind of cool in that, in fact, I think it's going to go really well with the previous one that we got. So this one has 4 sort of paintbrush strokes, and I'm only using 1 on my card today. But I remember that there was a previous Better Press Club that had kind of paint splats, and I thought that was really fun. So I think between the two, you have a lot of these different variations of, paint markings. And then as well, there are some sentiments. And I actually better pressed the word hooray right on top of that paintbrush swipe. And I even did it twice, because where the two overlap, that darker purple, it's actually visibly a little bit lighter where it overlaps with the color underneath it. But by going over it and better pressing twice, it actually darkened it a little bit, so it's not quite as perceptible, but I can still see it in real life. On camera, it actually looks pretty good, but you can kind of tell that where hooray is just over the white card panel, that area is actually darker. And but I still like the effect of this, and it makes for a really clean and simple look. I was actually thinking of just leaving it like this. That was the original plan, so that I could like flex the muscle of doing clean and simple, but I just couldn't leave it at that. So I decided to splatter some of that dark purple, and I think now it's not clean and simple anymore, technically, because I've splattered over it. I'm not too sure what qualifies for clean and simple and what doesn't, but um, I just felt like with that brush stroke, it just looks, kind of loosey goosey and very organic. That adding some splatter would help to just have that effect come across a little bit more. And otherwise, though, it's a pretty simple, really easy card. And you could make a bunch of these maybe as note cards even. And they're so general purpose. You could do them in different colorways and make it as a set of cards too. So I thought that was kind of fun. And I love the fact that you can better press um, over a pressed design. So next up is my layered card. I am drawing a little bit of inspiration from this color cube card, but the reality is that I actually was playing with my wax seals, and I was trying to use glitter, fine glitter that I include or pour into the wax and create more like a glittered wax look. And so I was just playing with random colors. So I picked the color cube card based off of the color of the wax seals that I made, and that's kind of how I arrived at this color card. But I'm starting off with stenciling my background, and this month's stencil of the month, it's actually one of those stencils where they don't layer. So every stencil that you have will actually color a different section of an A2 panel. And then if you've used them all, by the time you're done, you'll have a fully colored panel in a really neat geometric background. I didn't really realize that when I first started to put the stencils down, and it's not this panel. I decided to set the first panel aside, but they were, because the rectangles were overlapping with one another. And I really like the look of that. I like the effect of the squares, these rectangles being kind of random, and having the look of them overlapping one another. So I'm gonna play with that more and make a different background, using it sort of how it's not really designed to be used. But for this card, what I did was I'm actually only using three of the stencils. I think there's either five or six. I can't remember. And I like having a little bit of the white showing. So that's why I haven't used the other panels or the other stencils. I did just ink up my actual card base here, and I used one of the colors that I stenciled with. That way it's a perfect match and kind of saves me a layer of cardstock as well. And this is one of the wax seals that I made, and I don't think it's one that's super glittery, because it took me a while to get I guess a recipe of sorts where it looked where you can actually see the glitter. Because what was happening was I would pour the glitter in, and seemed like you could kind of see it, but then by the time the wax cooled and everything, it was really hard to see the sparkle and the shine of the glitter. I think it's because the wax is just so opaque, and it really just takes over. So if the glitter isn't like at the surface of the wax seal, then you're really just not going to see much of it at all. But I was experimenting, because I have plenty of glitter to play with, and not a lot. I don't really use it a ton, and so I just want to find more ways to use it up. And so I had a pretty long off-camera wax seal making session, and you can see the the proof of that with that pile of wax seals that I've got going on. And I did finally come to a recipe that I think works fairly consistently. So what I did, and I'll have to do a video and actually do this on camera, and that way you can kind of see the effects of it. But I have clear wax, so wax that's translucent, doesn't have a color to it, and I've actually never used it by itself. But what I found was, for a standard wax seal, I usually use about 4 to 5 wax beads. So if that's sort of the total number of wax beads, then my quote recipe for glitter wax seal is 3 clear beads, 1 pearlescent bead, and then half of a bead that is one of the more kind of flat, opaque colors, like black. And that seemed to work. So it's really surprising because it's 3 beads of clear and only half a bead of the black. And then with black, for the pearlescent, you could use just about anything. I threw in like a pearlescent pink. I threw in a pearlescent light lavender, and it helps to add a little bit of uh makes it a little bit more opaque, without it being too dark, especially with the black. And with the blues, for example, same thing. I use like a pearlescent blue and then half of a wax bead that's a more solid, darker blue. And that seemed to do the trick because I was using a clear wax bead, and so much of the seal is more that translucent. It really helps to have that glitter actually be able to be visible, and the seal still looks very solid. It doesn't look like it's transparent. It still looks very opaque, but the effect of it is that you can just see more of the glitter come through. And I did it multiple times, multiple different colors, even with black, and it's very visible. So really fun, really cool. I'll have to do a separate video on just that alone. But for this card, what I pulled in is my this cute little gnome. He's actually from a previous clear stamp of the month, I think March, if I'm remembering correctly. And I'm kind of using black as a bit of an accent color here. So I have a second tag that I cut out using the Spellbinders tag punch. And I did a little bit of spot coloring on my gnome. He's not completely colored in, but that helps to, I'm trying to do that sort of rule of odd numbers. So I've got the gnome is sort of, and that second tag, they're sort of in the same vicinity with each other. So they are combined one spot of black. The ribbon is a second spot of black, and then my wax seal will be the third black element. And I don't know what happened to that first wax seal that I colored in. I couldn't find it. So I just had to color in the second one. This one I think is more glittery, and that's going to finish my layered card. Really, really fun. Lots and lots of layers, and I had fun with this one. It's sometimes fun to kind of get a little inky and get a little bit messy. Now onto my interactive card, and my interactive card this time is going to be, it's been forever since I've made a slimline card. So this will be a slimline, and I knew straight away when I saw the large die of the month that I had to make this car drive across the length of a card, and that's why I went with slimline, so that it can drive even further than what an A2 card would allow. So I'm gonna start by assembling the car. There's lots and lots of little details here. You've got the tires, you've got die cuts for the headlight and tail light, you've got the body of the car, and as well the seat and the steering wheel can be a separate color. So lots of details. This little frog character is super, super cute. There's a die that cuts out his a little shirt that he can be wearing, and as well there's a die for his Spellbinders has been doing this lately, where they give you die cuts to back the eyes, and I love that. I really appreciate it. And I actually thought one of these could have this one here I thought could have worked as sunglasses too. But I actually think that's meant to be the eyes for the alligator. Or maybe it's a crocodile. I'm not too sure because you get that character in this die set too. I mean, the large die of the month is huge. You get two characters, you get this car, you have the hooray banner sentiment, you've got the border that you see there. It's kind of clever because that border die, I think I'm going to use it as grass in my scene, but I think you can use it as waves and water as well. And then I don't ever flip to the other side of my storage pocket here, but there's even more dies in the large die of the month because there's the alligator. There's a frame die, which is really cute. It's kind of like a irregular scallop frame. And then there's little party hats and even gift boxes that you can assemble and put together. Really, really cute. This die set is it's huge. There's just a lot going on here. So I've got my slimline. This is a full slimline card. So it measures 3.5 tall by 8.5 wide folded. And I've actually cut this out of 120-pound cover weight cardstock so that it's nice and sturdy. With pop-up cards, with interactive cards, I do like the base of my card base to actually be as kind of as thick and as sturdy as I can make it so that when you are playing with the mechanism, whether it's an interactive mechanism or a pop-up mechanism, it feels substantial and it doesn't feel flimsy like it's gonna, bend or fall over. Now, the dimensions I'm gonna tell you are rough estimates because I didn't really measure anything out. I was just kind of going with the flow on this, but I'll actually tell you what I would recommend as opposed to what I actually used because I made it work, but it was a tight fit. So I've got a bit of black cardstock here that measures 8.5 inches wide, and I recommend that you cut that to about maybe 1.25 inch tall. I've got some white heavyweight cardstock, so this is 120-pound cover, 8.5 inches wide, and I recommend you cut this piece to maybe 1.125 tall, so just a little bit shorter than your black strip. It doesn't have to be exact, but I would definitely recommend more than 1 inch. Maybe 1.125, 1 3/16 or so, and the black piece just needs to be a smidge taller. And then what I've done is you might actually have a die. If you have slider die sets, you might have a die that will cut out the slider track. But if you don't, you can just use a steel ruler like I did and cut yourself a track to whatever length you want. And then I used a 3/4 inch circle punch and I punched out 4 discs. I am applying glue to 1 disc and I folded 2 discs in half, and for each of them I'm just gluing half of it down and the other half is free to fold up. And so this is just the standard way that I make sliders. So once this is slotted through that track, I'll use the 4th circle and glue that to the top, and that pretty much closes the circle discs so that it locks it in place in this track. But it can still slide because it's not glued down to anything. It can still slide back and forth along the track. So this heavyweight cardstock strip here, I did cut it to 8.5 inches wide, and the length that I cut my slider track to was rather arbitrary. I wasn't too sure if I wanted it to go all the way across, and so that's why I only went maybe 3/4 of the way. But you do need to give yourself some room to glue. And that's why what I happened to make, was a little bit of a tight fit. So what I'm going to do is put some foam. This is kind of double thick foam here. I've got the world's best foam tape on this one end. And you can only put glue where there won't be something that has to move, namely the pull tab. And the pull tab I cut from 120 weight cover weight cardstock, and the pull tab is 3/4 of an inch tall. So with this mechanism being only 1 inch tall, it doesn't leave a lot of room to glue things down. And so that's why I sort of recommend different measurements so that you're not working as I am with such a tight space. I happen to have the Barely Arts uh, foam strips. These are their cubies, and they're kind of cool because you get like 4 sheets, and one is like super thick foam, and I'll actually use that later in my card. But you get these like really thin strips of foam too. They're about maybe 1/8 of an inch. And so I did manage to get a strip of foam that's 1/8 of an inch tall along the bottom of that mechanism. And that way I have it's not just to secure this mechanism to the card base, but also to create a track for this pull tab. So this is my pull tab. I just put glue on one of the circle discs, and that's it. So that pulls that circular disc along the track, and then we'll attach our frog to the top side of that. But the thing with the foam, though, is that you kind of need it to, one, be able to secure it to the card base, but two, it forms a track so that as you're pulling on the pull tab, you're not pulling it kind of wonky. It keeps everything nice and straight. But with the measurements that I actually cut this to, because usually I don't actually make a practice one. I just have an idea, I have a concept that I want to do, and then I just do it. And so a lot of times I'm not really measuring anything out in advance, or doing a trial run of anything. I just kind of go with the flow, and I adapt, and I make it work. And I did end up making it work, but I would definitely recommend giving yourself more room, because ideally you should be able to fit a strip of foam adhesive along the bottom of your pull tab and along the top in order to create a full track all the way left to right. I was only able to fit foam along the bottom because I kind of just eyeballed when I glued or when I cut my slider track, so it's not exactly in the center. And it also so I was able to fit, I'm not sure why, but things did end up a little bit crooked, and I was only able to fit like a little bit of foam at the very end. But that's enough. That's enough to keep the pull tab from getting pulled at an angle. So so I made it work, but give yourself, don't make it hard on yourself if you're gonna recreate this card or make something similar. Just remember to give yourself enough room so that you can actually glue this mechanism to your card and create a nice track for your pull tab. But you can see it works. It works just fine. It's not ideal if I had to do it over again, but it still works just fine. And really, you're going to be the only one who knows that it could have been better. So now that my mechanism is glued down, it's in place. What I need to do now is actually add the rest of the layers to create my scene. And the reason why I'm constructing the slider this way is so that I can actually hide the slider track, because I don't like the slot of the slider track being visible. So what I'm gonna do is glue that black strip right over top, and it's going to be a what hides the slot. And for that to work, though, we need to attach the car. If we want the car to move, the car needs to be attached to that circle that's on top. And that's the mechanism that moves back and forth. And I'll show you how to do that once I get my scene pieces in place. So I've taken the border die and I am cutting out this strip that also measures 8.5 wide. And that's going to be a little grassy strip. I've got some acetate here, which is construction weight acetate. So it's not the thin stuff that I would normally use on a shaker card. It's slightly thicker. It needs to be kind of strong because it's going to hold the car. But it can't be so thick because I'm going to put a fold in this. I'm actually going to fold this down over that street mechanism, or that strip of black cardstock. And that bit of acetate is going to get attached to the circle slider mechanism so that when I pull on the tab, it pulls this circle, and in turn, it will pull this bit of acetate. And the acetate's just going to fold right over the street. And I'm going to glue my car with this cute little frog to this bit of acetate. So now it looks like our frog is driving down the street. And the frog and the car, they are big enough where it actually completely covers the acetate. I chose acetate so that on the off chance that I can't cover it with the car, at least it's clear and it sort of sells the illusion, but it actually is completely blocked by the body of the frog. And so it works out really well where it looks like it's just, driving along and you don't see the mechanism at all. So I love how that turned out. It was lots of fun to create. A bit of a tight fit, but I made it work in the end, and it looks pretty cool when it's all said and done. Now, because the pull tab is so long, since this is a slimline card, I thought it would be neat if the the small sentiment that's part of the Better Press Club gets revealed when you pull it out all the way, when you pull the tab all the way out. And so as many different colors as I have in that pile that I already pressed out, I didn't like any of them for this card. So I decided it's quick enough to just press out another set. And I love the fact that the club does come with coordinating dies. So really easy to just one pass, I can press all of the sentiments out. And in one pass, I can die cut them all out too. I mean, they're on separate plates, but it's easy enough to do them both together. And with this, I actually just pressed into, I didn't want to use my nice cotton paper. I just pressed into my thicker, like the 120-pound cover weight cardstock that I had left over. And it pressed beautifully into that. So it worked just fine on regular cardstock as well. You don't always have to use cotton card. And I've got these little cute little clouds. They are from the small die of the month, which I'll feature in my pop-up card next. I had one left over, and then, trying to still go with that, rule of odd numbers, I die cut out some more. So I have 3 clouds. And here again, I'm gonna do something that then I have to sort of work around a little bit. So I'll caution you that if you put anything dimensional, like foam, behind any of your elements that should be behind your frog, it actually might create a catch point, meaning it might intersect with your frog and impede it from moving forward. And so I'll show you how I fixed that. So it's not the end of the world if you like the look of all of this extra dimension. I figured this is already a really thick card because just the mechanism itself is, you know, 2 layers of foam. This is definitely not an easy mailer. Um, so I am adding some Love from Lizzie's pinstripe stickers to be the paint on my street, which was a really fast, easy way to get that added little detail. And that's kind of the mechanism. It works nicely, but every once in a while, the head of my frog gets caught up with the hooray sentiment. So what I did was I took some of the Barely Art QB foam. I took the thick one, like it's a 1/4 inch thick, and I just put 2 cubes behind the head of the frog, but I didn't glue it down. I only released the liner from one side to glue it to the frog. The other side, I just left the liner there, and the only purpose in doing that is so that it lifts up the head of the frog so that it's always on top of the word hooray, because otherwise it was sort of flopping down and it would get caught up on the word. So I did fix it in the end and it works great now. Okay, so now we're on to my last card, which is my pop-up card. So I'm gonna start off with the this panel. This is an A2 size panel, and here's the concept that I was thinking of. I had the idea when I saw the small die of the month. This was really cute. It's kind of like a little puppet sloth, and he kind of looks like a little like rag doll actually, and super super cute. And what I thought I would do is, I don't know, I've been really into these peekaboo cards where you cut out of your card front a shape. I've always been doing circles lately, and that way you can see right into the inside of your card through that circle. And the idea that I had in my head was that I would have a little peekaboo card where the front is just daytime and you can see the sloth through that little peekaboo window. And then when you open the card, it goes from daytime to nighttime. Or really, what I was going for was sunrise to sunset. And that way, where there's that peekaboo window into the inside of the card, some of the colors will still sort of overlap. So if it's a sunrise, it's, you know, kind of yellow and into this nice bright cloudy blue. And then the second panel that I'm going to ink up, I'm going to aim to get the yellow sort of in the same spot because I'm going to die cut a circle in that zone. But when you open it up, it's going to be a different ombre, a different blend. So here I'm sort of figuring out like what size circle am I going to use? Where is it going to be? And then I'm going to create more of dusk look. So putting in some reds, and then at the top I'll use darker blues and purples for more of a sunset effect. And in my mind, I thought that would be kind of a neat idea. So that's how I'm approaching the blending here. I was having a really hard time getting this ink to move. I'm not too sure why, but if you find that to be the case for yourself, I think it might have been the brush I was using, the smaller one. It just wasn't really pulling the color very well. So I just put a drop of glycerin, which just helps to make the surface nice and slick, and that helped to make everything move a little bit better. And then I'm going to go into darker blues now on the top portion. And so I'm trying really hard not to get too close to the yellow because I don't want to make green um where the blue overlaps with the yellow. So I'm trying really hard to steer clear from the yellow, but I need it to be um a little bit of a horizon. And what you could do is you could just mask off and have like a really straight line horizon. um but all I did was I just kind of used the edge of my brush and I just tried to create a little bit of a line, but I was trying to get some curvature to this. And in the end though, I did add a little bit extra detail off camera. I just went in with a another blending brush and just added some wisps of lines across to make it kind of look a little bit cloudy, and I think that helps to break things up a little bit. So I've got my sloth here, really, really easy to layer up. Again, there's a die cut that you can easily back the body of the sloth with, and so that gives you the eyes and the nose. And then he's just got the extra layer on top that gives him sort of the raccoon eyes. So really, really adorable. There's a lot of actual like debossing detail that's hard to see, but in person you can actually see all these like little lines that sort of make it look like fur on the sloth. Really, really adorable, super cute. Okay, so then I've got my card base here. And again, I'm using a heavyweight 120-pound cover weight cardstock for my card base. And I am going to start to put this together by cutting an aperture out of the front. And for a second, I was thinking, should it go from night time to daytime? I'm not even too sure why I was thinking about that, because it just makes more logical sense to go from daylight to nighttime. But sometimes I just have to see it and try it, do a little dry fit, and but I did stick to plan A. So I cut a circle out of my panel. I drew a pencil mark so that I could transfer where the position of that aperture is, and I cut that same size circle through the front of my card. Now, I did not think too far ahead, and I kind of forgot a step. I fixed it in the end, so not the end of the world if you do this and you forget a step as well. But that's what it's going to look like. And there's a little bit of the blue showing, there's a little bit of the orange showing, but I don't think it's the end of the world, and I'm going to find ways to kind of cover it up. But here's what I forgot. And that is, I totally forgot about putting some acetate between the front panel that has the inking and my card base. And ideally, that's sort of the layering of things that you would want to do. So you would want your inky panel, back that with some acetate, and it could be like a thinner acetate. You don't need construction weight. And then glue that onto your card front. You're gonna see that I did not do that, but I did fix it in the end because I realized it actually pretty late in the game. But right now, what I'm putting together in the small die of the month, you also get 3 little balloons and the string of balloons. And so in the you can kind of use the sloth however you want, but in the packaging that I saw photos of, there it kind of makes it look like the balloons are holding up the sloth. And so I thought that was kind of cute, and that's why I kind of like keeping the outside, the front, nice and plain, and you can just get a little bit of a peek of the sloth. But it's when you open it that you see he's attached to some balloons that are keeping him afloat. So I'm gonna die cut those, and I've just die cut them out of various different silver cards. So there's like a satin mirror. There's a glitter silver, and as well there's like one that has almost like some texture, some stripy texture to it. Okay, so now for the actual pop-up mechanism, I've got just some scrap cardstock. This is about 80 pound, I think. And I've scored it out 1/4 of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, 1 1/4, and then I cut it off at 1 1/2. So basically, it's 1 1/2 inches wide. Doesn't need to be this long. I didn't know how much of this I would need, so I just scored the whole length of this. But it's 1 1/2 wide. You want to score it in the center at 3/4 of an inch, and then you want to score 1/4 of an inch on both sides. So that gives you this mechanism here where you have 1/4 inch glue tabs, and it's a little bit of, you can think of it as an M or a W, just depends on, which way you orient this. But when you go to fold this, you want to fold it as an accordion. So mountain, valley, mountain. And I'm going to just cut this down to length as I need to use it. And that's going to be the pop-up. It's like a really easy pop-up mechanism. Okay, so where this is going to go is behind the sloth. So I'm going to put 2 sections of this on the sloth. So near the top here is the widest that I can get. And then at the bottom of his body, like before it turns into his like skinny legs. So that way the sloth is nice and secure by these 2 pieces. So I'm going to trim off those sections. I didn't measure it at all. So, when I make these cards, again, I just start with a concept in my head that I want to do. And then when I sit down to do it, it's all kind of off the cuff, and I do a lot of measuring to fit. So this little piece here will go towards the top of his head, and then the other little pop-up mechanism will go towards the bottom. And that's what they look like on the profile. So you can see it's like a little W. And when you go to glue this down, those 1/4 inch edges, those are glue tabs. So on one end, you want to glue it to your sloth. And then when we go to attach this to our card, we will glue the other glue tab down to the inside of the card. So the only place that you put glue is just on the 1/4 inch. And how did I arrive at these measurements? Well, I just wanted a small glue tab, so 1/4 of an inch, rather arbitrary. And then the 2 1/2 inch sections in between your 2 glue tabs, basically that governs how far forward your object is going to pop up or pop out. And so that can be whatever you want it to be. But it does still need to be able to fold down and be hidden by your object. And so that's really the constraint for how long that section can be. So as you can see, everything is gonna fold down flat, and but when you open the card, it's going to actually kind of pop up a little bit. So really fun, really easy mechanism. Here's where I realized that, oh yeah, that sloth, he's popping up, and so I need acetate. I need acetate behind this aperture to help hold him down, to help hold him inside the card. Oh well, so what I did was I had to cut another A2 panel. Well, you don't have to, but I wanted this to look nice on the inside of the card too. And since I've already glued down my front panel, I'm not going to pull that back up. It's ages ago that I glued it down, and it's going to be a tear to peel that back up, and probably not going to even be possible because I probably used liquid glue. So what I'm going to do is just put my little square of acetate on the back. That's the inside back of the card. And then I cut out this extra panel only so that I can cover up the acetate. And that way it looks nice and neat on the inside too. If you don't mind, if you're watching this, then you're better off applying that acetate between your top panel and your card base, and then you can save yourself from having to add that extra bit of cardstock. Okay, so now we can install our little sloth here. I'm putting glue just on the 1/4-inch glue tab. So remember, you only want to put glue on that little 1/4-inch glue tab, and then this is going to get a little bit tricky because it's sort of like a little spring mechanism that we've made. And so to install this, you kind of need to push it down. But there's already glue, so you can't really touch it by the glue tab. But then I also want to position this so that it's actually visible through that aperture, that peekaboo window. And so just be careful. You might get a little bit messy, but that's why liquid glue is really nice, because even if you touch the liquid glue a little bit, there's probably still going to be enough there. It's going to still make for a really strong permanent hold. And plus it'll give you some wiggle room if you do need to nudge it. But look at that. See how it springs forward? And I mean, that's a lot of dimension. That's a lot of fun. And he just kind of pops out at you. So really cute, so easy to do, and really fun too. So I do want to add the balloons, and so I've got the balloon strings cut out. I've got my balloons cut out as well. And the thing is that the balloons also need to pop out as well. So there were a couple things that I was debating. One, I could maybe add some strong acetate behind the sloth and then glue the balloons to that. And that way when the sloth bounces forward, the balloons will kind of bounce forward too, but they're top heavy, so I figured it's going to be saggy. So then all I did was, remember that sort of spring mechanism that I made earlier? I have such a long stretch of it. All I did was I just cut off 3 little additional springs and attached one mechanism piece behind each of the 3 balloons. And that way, when you open the card, and it's the exact same measurements as what's behind the sloth, so it's going to spring up kind of the same amount as the sloth, and that keeps it nice and level with the little sloth, which is kind of cute. And it's more secure that way, because if I had gone with the acetate route and just maybe attached an acetate pop-up stand to the sloth and then glued my balloons to that, there's so much weight at the top where the balloons are versus closer to where the sloth is. There's just the string. And so I figure it's going to be kind of floppy with acetate. And this worked out so much better because everything now springs forward and is nice and level. So I used a cloud to cover up that little bit of blue sky that was peeking through to the front. And then I used my Sentiment Hooray to cover up the little bit of the bottom orange that was peeking through. So the illusion that where you can see through to the inside, it still has that really nice, yellow, and it still reads from the front before you open the card as daylight. So you don't see any of those other kind of sunset colors. And then I wanted to add an additional sentiment on the inside because on the outside it just says hooray. And then on the inside you get the rest of the sentiment, time to celebrate. And that wraps up my pop-up card. See, it still folds down flat. You can still put it into a regular envelope. Might not mail for the cost of a single stamp, but it's still relatively flat and will go through the mail. So here's a final look at all 4 cards that I made. This is my flat card, which features the Better Press Club. And I just pressed twice. So once with the paintbrush stroke, and then second time with the word hooray. Then my layered card, I have the really just, the half of the stencils, and I made my own glitter wax seal. I love how that turned out. And I love the wax seal club because birthday cards are, probably after Christmas cards what I make the most of. So really nice to have a seal with that sentiment. My interactive card is a slider, and I love that the additional sentiment is revealed on the pull tab when you pull it, and that the whole pull tab mechanism is completely hidden. I love that. That might be my favorite card, but then I also really like this pop-up card as well because the sloth is really cute, and I kind of like that whole concept of it going from daytime to more nighttime, and you can kind of see how much the sloth and the balloons are actually popping out from the back of the card. Really, really fun, but it all folds nice and flat in the end and can be put through the mail. So that's my flip for this month. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll leave links to everything in the description box below. If you have a favorite out of the 4, let me know in the comments which one you like best. Thanks again, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye.